Hello, friends. It's good to be with you once again. You may not have seen me for the last couple of weeks there, and part of that was that I was on isolation in quarantine, once again having come in contact with someone who was COVID positive. So it's good to be out of isolation, and then right into Lent. Yes, Lent. We're starting that season. And we may have the impression that we've been in a year-long Lent. So when we begin Lent and we think of, sacrifices, often we would talk about, giving up chocolate or maybe giving up this or that, sacrifices for Lent. Our mind can quickly say to ourselves, yeah, but I've been in Lent for a whole year, and it hasn't just been about giving up on chocolate. It's been giving up on a whole lot of other things. And so we think of that which we have been deprived of, or either we have chosen to deprive of ourselves, to let go, to die to in a way, or things that have been asked, even obligated of us to give up, including going to the Eucharist, and that's really been difficult. Let's just admit it. And as it's difficult, as there's the sadness, the frustration, that can quickly bleed into anger, self-pity, that just we wallow in our self-pity, or blaming others, or compensating. It can. And so maybe Lent then is called at this time, in what way am I called to die to myself? What's the real letting go, offering to God, that letting go sacrifice that I'm called to? And I think that for any Lent, and perhaps especially Lent this year, as this situation continues, and we're not real sure how long it's going to last, but its effects are going to be here for quite a few months yet, that as we enter into Lent, it's an invitation to have our gaze fixed before anything else on Christ on the cross. Because Christ on the cross, he wasn't a victim. He wasn't a victim. He chose to be there. The sin of the world conspired to bring him to that cross. But he wasn't a victim. He chose to love to the end. No greater love hath a man than to give his life for his friends. He loved to the end, chose to love to the end, chose to love to the end, confident in the Father's love. And so I say that. Of course, the cross leads to the resurrection, the triumph of love. It leads to the Spirit alive, the Spirit of Christ, crucified and risen, alive in us. We live out that truth of the cross and the resurrection every day. But then the invitation perhaps is, more particularly in this 40 days, is to really have our gaze fixed on the cross. And I say that because, again, the sense of it's been long, it's been hard, and so in many ways it's hard to love, or harder to love, or harder to hope, or harder to be merciful, harder to think of those suffering in our city, in the world, I think of homeless shelters. I think of development and peace. You know, the where we are right now can have the effect of turning us into ourselves even more. And then we can have, a sense of what's really happening and what our intentions are, and so what brings us to act or to say this. And it's for sure, we have within our heart both good intentions and not so good intentions that are actually called sin. And in a time of difficulty, there may be the temptation to not look at ourself in that way. Do you know what I mean? The truth of our heart. We have in our heart that which brings us to be kind, to be respectful, to be loving. And it is Jesus. Jesus with that love of the cross, on the cross, alive in us, we living in him, with him. But there's also that part, and perhaps we go to that part, or it's easier to go to that part a little quicker now, at this point, where that's not what's really motivating our actions, our words, our decisions, how we are with people. And so this Lent is not, it's certainly not giving up on chocolates. It's in the giving up and continuing to give up of so many things. How do we love and grow in love, grow closer to God and closer to one another in this situation? And that's why I think the gaze, in our prayer, in our reflections, continuing to look upon and ponder, understand, be drawn into that love of Christ on the cross is what we're called to. And I really invite you in your families, because we're still quite a bit restricted to our families, to find those ways, those devotions, those moments of prayer, the reading of the Bible and sharing, to help us as a family grow into that. We can do the Stations of the Cross at home. We can receive the ashes at home in a family liturgy, so to speak. We can encourage each other to look upon the cross and to say, that kind of love, what is it calling me to now? It's not an easy road, because we don't dump it on others. We ask the Lord to enlighten our hearts. And we're confident, because in his great mercy, he will always do that. Walk us so that we become freer, more peace-filled, more joy-filled, more truly loving. I wish you a good Lent. Thank you.